So this is going to be a very business presentation, very much business presentation. So it's not going to be technical at all. And probably it's going to be the most depressing presentation I ever did in my life. And it's depressing on purpose. And it's a bit philosophical and it's a bit experimental. So if I'm talking something stupid today, please tell me. That's the first time I talk in this on this topic. So yeah, just bear with me a bit. Basically, I'll talk to you. I'll present a very depressing view, which hopefully will allow us to do some things a bit better in data science. So who am I? So I'm a CTO at VAAM, and this is a legal tech startup, Switzerland and Germany. My background is management consulting. Before this, I spent my life at startups. That's actually how I met Steven several years ago. I have my own consulting company. I did some XA research, have a nice paper you can check out there. And I have several books. The first one, O'Reilly, which came out last year, which is quite technical, pretty much a textbook. And the second one, which is a bit more ambitious, where I wanted to kind of put all the knowledge I gathered in management consulting as a technical person and teach people how to do this thing called data strategy. And actually, there will be a lot of things in this talk from that book. And now let's start with the philosophy. So what is via Negativa? Technically, this is a method for decision making, and this is invented by this guy, Nassim Taleb. I think he's from Lebanon, if I'm not mistaken. And he has a brilliant book called Anti-Fragile, Things That Gain from Disorder. And this guy, I'm a huge fan of his. And I think this book I gave to so many of my friends, and I can just urge you to read it. If you're into statistics, mathematics, if you're a skeptical person, have a look. So maybe I can give the example with what your parents will do with you when you're a child. So they would often tell you, Boyan, at least that's what my parents did with me. They said, Boyan, work very hard, get a nice degree, find a family, have children, and live a happy life. And I was like, sure, Captain Obvious, you know, my father, I was thinking, that's great advice, but what do I do about this? I mean, everybody says that. Actually, a better advice would be, Boyan, do not take drugs. Boyan, don't mess with bad people. Boyan, don't get into crime. All of those things. So by avoiding the worst things, you can be much more smart about being productive. So this is just because the human psychology, we tend to focus on negative things. And this is a trick we can use to our advantage. And that's actually what we're going to do for data science now. We will see what we should not be doing. I'm guilty of all of these mistakes. And then maybe we can speak a bit, what can we do about that? And this is my favorite consulting slide, which I did. This is something I call implementation maze. This is when our boss would come and say, yeah, let's do AI in anything. And in my case, it was, let's do AI in logistics. And I'm like, okay, sure, let's do AI for logistics. Yeah, it's easy peasy, let's just do it. And they would, this is a real story from a client of mine, they will spend a ton of money hiring a great team. They will put like a business owner, a data scientist, data engineer, a data analyst, give them big salaries because big companies, and tell them, okay, guys, have fun, do AI for logistics, see you in 3 months, and just give me some results. So what happens is disaster, not surprisingly. And this is, I've seen this so many times, and it's always the same reasons. You can imagine from left to right, we go through a project, imagine the different sprints that we have. And the first thing that happens, a data scientist will say, I need some data to actually work. Nobody thought that this needs to happen at the beginning. Of course, and the data scientist spends like several days, I don't know, changing the color scheme of their editor, reading something. And they ask the data engineer, that's important. And the data engineer obviously drops everything. Yeah, let me give you, my friend, let me give you some data. The data analysts at the same time, they don't need a data dump, they need data access because nobody thought about that. Why would they need data access? And who do they ask? They ask the data engineer. This person, he or she has all the keys. And let's say the data engineer has been surviving somehow all of this time. the business owner starts to ask questions. Yeah, where are the results? Yeah, I mean, what are you guys doing? The data engineer also at the same time, and this red arrows means giving stress. The data engineer gets a Jupyter prototype from the data scientist. Yeah, here's my fancy R code. See you in a few weeks, my friend. And this is where you get the big storm where everything dies. And this is why you have the stop sign. This is normally when things start to die. Things start to continue to be delayed. The business owner gets more unhappy. Then they start to ask, when are we deploying this stuff? Yeah, nobody has ever deployed anything on my team. I don't know. And even, and this is the worst thing in data science and engineering, even if somehow people manage to make a model, they deploy, there's an endpoint, they use SageMaker, is great. The business owner, never thought, so now what do we do? I mean, I don't trust this. I mean, it's deployed, but yeah, it's an API endpoint. So should I call somebody from accounting to use it? I don't know. And this is the worst time when when projects die. There's another way to show this thing, and you can even quantify this. So imagine the line that we have in the middle is the water line, and you're either swimming under it, swimming in the disaster, or you're actually working in the islands. And unfortunately, all of us have been there. We've been searching for data. We didn't have data access. We were waiting. We didn't have resources from IT. We didn't know how to set up our software. Even big companies are guilty of this. If you work for Amazon, for example, they don't allow you to install some of your own packages. So you wait and wait and wait. So actually, I mean, team efficiency around 20%, that's probably high. And now, yeah, that was the depressing part. Let's talk about what can we do about this. And there's two things we can do. And those, especially the second one, Agile, is a bit of a dirty word in data science. And I think both have a place. But first, what is Lean and what is Agile? Lean is your factory, so everything moves, goods gets produced. And Agile is making sure this factory produces different products quickly. And those methodologies, for example, let's start with Lean. And this, unfortunately, I wish I invented this, but please read this book, Practical Data Ops. Lean originates from Toyota. I think, as you guys know, at Toyota, they wanted to produce cars faster, better. And the author of this book, he tried to see, okay, what are the things, what are the so-called sources of waste we might have in data science? Because the factory is quite clear. I mean, you have people moving too much on the stairs, carrying boxes instead of forming a chain. You have people who are, obviously underqualified, overqualified. You have people waiting at the assembly line. Same things happens in data. All of us think that we are knowledge workers, that we're not really a victim to such manual things. It's just not true. So all of those things here happen. And now maybe I can provide one common solution to a lot of those problems that at least I, as a data scientist, find out. And I think, Steven, you're also a biologist, right, by training. So you know what this is. This is like a laboratory notebook.
Don't forget.
So Steven tried to forget about it, but actually, as a biological scientist, if you make experiments, you have to write them down in a specific way. And this is not just a normal notebook. It has to be time-stamped. Somebody has to sign it. You have to make sure your documents are documented. And this is an example of one thing which makes your work reproducible, which makes sure everybody understands what you're doing. Again, you can use all kinds of tools for this. So now this was a bit on the Lean side, what you could do. Now on the Agile, and I talked to a lot for my second book. I talked to a lot of people in data, and they always said Agile works, but it has to be super soft, But maybe why it would be a problem in the first place? How do we estimate machine learning projects that maybe it's not going to work? Maybe the data sucks. How do we gather requirements? That's a problem. How do you talk? That's my favorite one. How do you explain those things to a non-tech audience? So there's a lot of issues with Agile. But if we do it softly, let's not estimate our tickets. Let's not focus on weird things like velocity. Let's be a bit flexible on the requirements and adjust. Let's measure the right things. Let's make sure we use the lab notebook, as I said. And this is very important here. Sometimes we'll be researching, sometimes we'll be building. And when you're building, sure, be like, do the technical way, the old school way. But when you're researching, you just can't do that. And now maybe before my closing thoughts, I'm just going to give you just one final idea which I had. And this is quite experimental, I would say. I call this the closing the loop idea. So when you have a data science project, you can do a lot of things. And normally those map to a customer journey, start, middle, and end. And you can build like a cathedral, you can imagine, the perfect data science product. And you start at the beginning. You start to build your data ingestion work, you start to build all things perfectly. And then you realize if you do it this way, things take a long time, you're building the wrong things, and things break. So this is something which I learned from practice. Build the minimal things which go through the whole stack first to make sure that you build the basic pipeline, make sure that it's measured at the end, your team is happy because they actually did something, and then you can iterate after that. So that's one thing you can do. And the second thing, maybe quickly, which I call shotgun MVP. Sometimes in data science, you don't know which things you should do. So do several of them at the same time. Very quickly, you know if you're wrong. With machine learning, immediately you know the data sucks, right? But so instead of spending 4 weeks, just use 3 different data sets. And then based on some success metric, commit to one and use the rest as a backup. So there's a ton of things you can do. But I think my time is up. But roughly, I would say it's just not for work. I mean, you can use it also for your life, this idea. Read my book. First 10 copies are free. I mean, I can give you more. This book is amazing, Practical Data Ops, and Nassim Sadr's books are just great, So thank you. May I ask one question? I don't know if somebody has a burning one or... Okay, we can do it with a beer after that.